Welcome everybody to another episode. And today our topic is friendship.
Hey everyone, welcome to XYZ Storytellers, a platform started by three people across generations X, Y, and Z, engaging in conversations in the spirit of increased empathy and understanding.
Hi, I'm Erin, the millennial traveler and author. I'm an empath with a drive for connecting to others. I enjoy singing in the car, eating pints of ice cream, and hanging out with my cat Gimbal.
Hey, I'm Rich, the graybeard Gen Xer with 30 years in conference rooms or airplanes around the globe. I've also been a Little League coach and a family bus driver. This podcast is a way for me to have the types of conversations that just don't happen enough in my day-to-day life.
And me, I'm Lily. I've always been very opinionated and I speak passionately about things no matter who I might be with at the time. I'm here to share my thoughts and get the perspectives of two other generations so I can grow and expand my understanding of the world around me.
With XYZ Storytellers, our conversations aren't meant to be political, social, or even related to current events. We are just recording authentic conversations on a variety of topics, hoping they will resonate in some small way. Thanks for listening.
We were just having a little bit of a chat as we got ready to hit the record button. And friendship can mean many things to many different people, and it can take many different shapes and forms. So we're just going to see how this free-form conversation goes today on that topic.
Yes.
Lily, you want to start?
Sure. I would love to. So for friendships, I don't know how it's going to change as I grow up and I get out of the high school environment and the school environment. But right now for me and my current friends, everyone just has known everyone for their entire lives. They went to school together, they went to kindergarten together, they grew up together. So no one really distances themselves, and everyone just feels like they need to stay friends. And I think that definitely is going to change as I get older, and I'm kind of nervous for it.
I can speak to having gone through it recently and still going through it, and I'm sure Rich is still going through transformations of relationships and friendships, and it is weird. You're right. It's especially weird when you go to college and then you graduate, and when you graduate from high school, people go to different colleges and they kind of part ways, but then when you're in college, you fall into new groups of friends and people who are really pursuing the things that you are and value the same things. In high school, I would have considered most of my friends to be kind of circumstantial. I saw them every day, so they had to be my friends. And then college, your world opens a lot more. Granted, I went to a high school of 40 people, 50 people per grade, so my world was very small. And then I went to college, and suddenly there were 4,000 people I could become friends with, and they were all different ages, and they had different interests. And so I kind of found people that were closer to what I was looking for in a friend. That were they were still circumstantial to an extent, but they weren't forced upon me. I made a decision to be their friend. But then you graduate from college and you all go different directions. And 9 times out of 10, you don't even end up in the same state. And then you try to maintain this long distance relationship because you find people that mesh with you even more so than I felt like I meshed with people in high school. And all of a sudden I have to be an adult removed from my friend group, but still trying to maintain those. And so it's been really interesting to watch us grow apart, come back together, continue to be adults, but not really knowing firsthand what's going on in each other's lives, but still knowing that we're there for each other if we need something. So it's a much more touch base here and there when we can type of relationship than we're going to get dinner together every night and watch our favorite show. So it's different.
So for me, there's a lot more history, a lot more years have gone by. And I think I'm a veteran of 10 different moves and probably just as many different jobs over the years, right? And so friendship evolves, what it means to you, how you need a friendship or need friendships, that evolves. Very much having a family causes shifts where you're able to get a lot of your emotional connection from family members, especially if you're lucky enough to have children. So I think friendship is definitely, to your point, Lily, how it's going to evolve. It evolves continuously. It doesn't stop. There's no end point in how friendships are part of your life. I think what I've come to realize just recently even, so especially with social media. So there's people at home that I went to high school with, and I'm very much in tune with different major events, the loss of a spouse, the loss of a child, all of these different things that you're able to become aware of in almost real time through Facebook. You know, obviously I'm the older generation online, so Facebook is the way that we, you know, connect and we observe and everything. But I think, Aaron, you used the word earlier, it was acquaintance. And you're going to have acquaintances, and you're still going to have people that you interact with from high school when you're 50 years old like me that are acquaintances. I think a friendship, the way that I would measure, what I would classify a friendship versus an acquaintance is there's a connection, but also as you get older, there's more of a natural connection. I think, Aaron, you touched on it. The connection you have in high school and in college is oftentimes a result of the proximity or the sameness of your surroundings. You know, Lily, you've had friends that you've been close with that have joined different sports teams, or you've been part of sports teams and then you've stopped being on those sports teams, and those friendships didn't necessarily survive that change. And that didn't make the friendships any less real, right? And that's kind of like the first hard thing is when you fall out of touch with people that you had that shared connection with, and you're like, well, does that mean our whole friendship was not even real? Or no, it was very real. What you feel in the moment is very real. But that doesn't mean a friendship is going to last your entire life. And some friendships just aren't meant to last your entire life. On the flip side, I've actually had the good fortune of maintaining a friendship with, I would say, there's probably two people in my life, one from college and one from high school. And they're both women that I was friends with in high school and in college. And we were in and around the same friend group. I won't even say these people I was really that close of a friend with them. I was probably more of an acquaintance to, an occasional friend with them in those different settings. But we managed to keep in touch over the years. And it was a lot of times during particularly important moments in our lives. And we've been able to stay connected and stay close as friends. Whereas some of the people that I've been friends with and stayed in touch with through social media, there's times when we said, hey, let's get together. And then you get together and it's like, once you get through that first 20 minutes to half an hour of pleasantries and catching up on what are your kids doing, what are my kids doing, there's really nothing, nothing really there. It's kind of like, it's like having a conversation with a cousin that you see once a year at the holidays. You get to a point where it's like, oh, well, okay, well, and then you kind of drift to another part of the room and you visit with somebody else, right? So friendship is definitely something that shifts in and out of your life. But for me, a true friend is someone that when you do see them after a period of absence, there's no sense of guilt or shame or anything around the fact that you lost touch with them. And then there's just still this connection where you can pick up where you left off. So,
it's kind of funny that you use like the cousin reference of you only see once a year and then you don't really feel like you have anything to talk about, because you were sparking my thinking about, and Lily, this is a good question for you, because I feel like I was just talking earlier about how I hate when people text me all the time and like they just want to talk to me constantly, because then I feel like when we get together and we have coffee, I have nothing to talk about because they already know everything. And so I'm not sure how much you text your friends outside of school and then you go in the next day and you see them. Like, do you come up with more stuff to talk about? Because in my mind, it's like, if we're talking all the time, then when I get together, we awkwardly have nothing to talk about. So in my mind, I'm like at the total opposite spectrum, Rich, of like, if I don't see someone for a while, I have so much more to talk about than if I talk to someone all the time through text messaging or on the phone. then I feel like we get together and we've already covered everything.
I don't know how to explain it, but over the phone versus in person, me and my friends are very different.
Mm-hmm.
Like over the phone, we talk about funny things that we saw. We send videos, we send pictures. We just talk about like making plans. We don't really like talk about, we don't have conversation. We kind of just communicate. And then in person, that's when we have all of our conversations and we talk about like our families and our other friends and like things that are happening and things that we don't want to do, like school or like homework, like food we want. Like it's just like random things like that. And then over the phone, that's when we start planning to hang out next. And then that's pretty much it. We don't really like conversate over the phone. I don't know why.
That's kind of an interesting perspective of just having a conversation versus communicating.
Yeah. Like we kind of just like my phone is kind of just a way for me to reach them, to be like, oh, want to hang out. And then we make plans. And then when we hang out, that's when we actually start having conversations and talking.
So I've been texting wrong this whole time.
Well, you don't, yeah. Well, if they live 3,000 miles away and you're not going to really talk to them, I mean, you know, but you could switch to a video call, right? Or something. But I mean, there's no right or wrong. It's just, I think though, there's this verbal autobiography and then there's a conversation. You know, and we're all, you know, again, like I said, the cousin at the party, like, what are you doing? Well, I get this, I got a new job. And once you start talking about all of those different events and you're finished with it, you know, do you kind of just still want to feel connected, or do you even just naturally already feel connected so that you're then, you know, we talked about it, I think last time, which is the moving from your head to your heart, you know, and so I guess for me, the friend is the one that when I'm with them, I can catch up. Obviously there's some logistics of just catching up, but then there's the, you know, do I want to talk to them or convert or conversate in a way that it's more from the heart than from the head. You know, because there's people that I can talk to all day long about politics and current events and hobbies and, you know, intellectually about different things. But I'm still in my head, right? But is there someone, you know, and that's, these two friends are folks that have been through some challenging times, and I've had my own share of challenging times. And what I think for me is these friendships have survived because these are two people that knew me before one of probably the worst events of my life, and stayed true and with me through that event. And then we drifted apart, and all three of us each, you know, they don't know each other. They're one's from high school, one's from college. They had their families and they had their challenges, and you know, we just have this knack of, I'm going to check in on, you know, on so-and-so and see how she's doing. And I'll get on the phone and she'll say, well, it's amazing that you called today. I really needed somebody to talk to. This just happened yesterday. And so there's a little bit of serendipity or divine intervention or something that puts you in the right place. And to be honest with you, I do feel that these are two people that, having stood by me, deserve me making the effort to stand by them. And yawning in a podcast is not a good sign, Erin. I mean, you know, you can't.
I did not sleep much last night.
You can't really expect the audience to stay with you if you're gonna.
It's a good thing they can only see your face when you're talking. So okay, I'm listening. Right. I had coffee, and then I have not had much water. And like I said, I just ate for the first time today.
I think you're probably crashing from your caffeine.
I am crashing, and I had severe insomnia last night. So I am with you. I am listening, and I am participating.
It's the melodious tones. It's the melodious tones of my voice that are putting.
It's very, you know, you should do meditation tapes. Truly, I would listen to those. It would be very soothing.
There's a song that I sing when the kids were young, and they would all be rowdy at night. I sang it to them all when they were infants. And, you know, when they were, you know, 8, 9, or 10 or whatever, they were rowdy and they wouldn't go to sleep. I got to a point where I realized I wouldn't yell. I'd sit in the hallway and I'd start singing that song, and they'd all get psychologically triggered and start falling asleep. And they'd be like, "Dad, why are you singing that song? You're making me sleepy." And, it was probably Becca and April that did it the most.
But so, because you were talking about like having a conversation from the heart versus the head, and I'm kind of latching on to that idea. I'm kind of intrigued by it because I feel like, so this has multiple different layers, because I was thinking about what the difference is between an extrovert and an introvert, and how you replenish your energy, and then there's this whole idea that, well, introverts just don't like shallow conversation, which is true to an extent, but I think for me, I definitely need to restore on my own for a lot of that. But then I also feel like I am easily drained in any social situation if I have to put forth a lot of surface level conversation and not really get to the meat of everything. So I feel like when I'm not having meaningful conversation, I am drained much faster. But I do think that the people who I would consider to be really good friends are people that I can have both of those conversations with, and we just know when the right one is needed. So I feel like the people that really know me well know when I'm ready for a feisty debate about something intellectual versus I just need you to be here with me as a person and as a human, and just kind of just re-energize with me and just kind of sit with me and be there and know me for who I am. So I feel like there's kind of a mixture of both, but I definitely don't think that my true friends wouldn't be able to have that kind of head conversation, because that's how I relate.
It's not an either or. It's not an either.
Yeah, it's a balance, and I recognize that now more than ever, and I really like your analogy of conversing from the head and the heart, and not just one or the other. I think that was a really nice visual.
Yeah, and I think there's a couple of thoughts that came to mind. So, but this is in relationships, so this is broader than friendships, right? But there are people that you interact with that when you're done interacting with them, they drain you of energy. And then there's people that you interact with, when you interact with them on average, right? They infuse you with some level of energy, or at worst, they don't take any away. Right. So, I think when you think about friendships, you want people that leave you feeling at least the same or nourished as a result of your interaction with them. And we're getting a little bit deep, because sometimes friendships are just like, hey, let's go to the ball game together. Right. You don't necessarily get nourished by going to the ball game or going to, but you know what I'm saying? But you do, in a sense of, that was great. I needed that. I needed to hang out. I needed to shut my brain off. I needed to do some whatever. But then there are friends that you have long-standing friends, and sometimes it's probably the ones that you stay with the longest, or you have the most interactions with. You find out are people that all of us want to feel like we can contribute, right? So you want to help someone, and you want to feel like you want to be there. Everyone wants to be that good friend, and so almost our default human nature puts us in a situation where we're serving our friend. And that becomes a habit, and that becomes, you could get into a whole conversation around codependency and all of that, right? But sometimes friendships maintain themselves because one or the other in the friendship needs something, and the energy is flowing in one direction or another, right? So there's that nurturing aspect of it. But then even just mechanically speaking, you're going to find yourself at times where you have, let's say, I talk to everybody. I talk to this person once every week, or I talk to this person once every month, or what have you. And then it's, you realize, wait a minute, if I actually don't call this person, we're not going to have this relationship. My initiating is the reason this thing's still being sustained. After I initiate and when we're together, we both enjoy it, but clearly there's an element there where I'm getting more out of it or needing more out of it than the other person. Because if you just let it go, Lily, to your point, you've got friends that the text exchanges go both ways, but I'm sure there might be a couple of friends you could think of where, well, unless they text you, you don't really even give that much mind because they're not a part of your day-to-day life. And then there's other friends where it's like, well, if I don't text them, I'm never going to hear from them. And so you do. And so you find yourself in that space, and that persists beyond high school and college. And, you're getting into your third year out of college or whatever it is. And you take a step back and you're like, I wonder if I stopped actually reaching out, if this person would miss me and would, but I also think too, there's beyond just where you're at in life, there's a gender element to this. Women, whether it's through different dynamics in society or what have you, where guys had their groups of buddies that they went to work with, and women had friendships that they built when they weren't working. And this whole dynamic of you have to make and create friend groups and have things, there's nothing harder than being a middle-aged guy in a new city and trying to strike up friendships, especially, I'm not trying to sound, self-centered, but especially as a traveling consultant, and you're not home during the week, there's not a lot of places where you can actually strike up new friendships, right? And so, that's a whole different topic, is how to make new friends, and making friends in high school, making friends in college versus making friends at 50, and I see that in my age group, quite frequently, where there's people that you go out for a beer with someone, you shoot the breeze, and then you're kind of like, as you're driving away, you're thinking, oh, I don't know, is that gonna, there's so much more that you're putting things through around the value of your time, whether you want to get, invested, whether they even, it's a whole thing for these poor middle-aged guys that I'm not me or anything. No, but it's just a different dynamic, right? To be a guy and to be older. And I think it's true for women. I mean, you get into your 40s and people start to retire. If you lose your friend circle, that's how people that are older get isolated, is that it's striking up new friendships and making new connections is very hard to do.
That's not where I thought you were going when you first started to talk about the gender differences. I thought you were going to talk about like how the genders different. They communicate differently in terms of their friendships, but also in the way that they honor them. Like, I feel like you're not really friends with a girl unless you post a picture about her on Instagram. Like, let's just be real. Like, you're just not, I feel like girls are more likely, or women are more likely to post about the people that they're closest with. That's one of the ways that I've always honored my friends. Posting something for your birthday, even though they're not close by. That was a way that I honored my friendships. Meanwhile, my boyfriend got a Facebook message, and I just kind of asked, oh, who's that? And he's like, oh, he's my best friend. And I was like, I've never seen this name before. And I scrolled back in the messages, and they haven't talked for 4 years. And I'm like, well, wait a minute, that's not your best friend. You haven't talked in 4 years. And he's like, no, we're best friends. Like, this is how. So it's been very interesting to see the differences in how Josh looks at his friendships and I look at my friendships. Like, if I haven't talked to them in a month, I'm like, oh crap, they're going to think that I don't care, that I forgot about them or something. And so I'm kind of curious, Lily, to know, because I feel like Snapchat streaks, for example, was huge when I was in college, and I'm sure they're still huge now.
Yeah, do you still do those, Lily?
No, I stopped doing I mean, they still go on. I definitely still get people that send me like Snapchat streaks, and I'm like, okay, but I haven't done that in like 3 years. I don't see the point of it.
Maybe a little less than 3.
No, I literally have not done it since like 8th grade.
I just remember seeing you every morning on the way to school if I was driving you to school, and you're like clicking through and like, what are you doing? Oh, I got to get all my streaks for the day. And one time I actually grounded her from using her phone, and I actually had to make an exception. She had to stand in the room in front of me and clear all of her streaks for the day before she gave the phone back.
That's hilarious. But like that's one of the ways that I feel like technology has kind of changed the way that we honor friendships. besides getting a little gift every once in a while or, you know, doing stuff for your birthday, I feel like there's a wide variety of different ways to let your friends know that you care. And I'm kind of curious to know if there are methods that kind of stick out in your head of what you do to maybe not necessarily always publicly announce your friendship, but at least remind each other that you're still close. Is it getting together on a regular basis? Like, what does that look like for you when you honor your friendship?
I guess I would say I have two really close friends right now, and the way that we just like the way we stay so like connected and like we know that we're still best friends every day is like we don't necessarily talk every day because sometimes there's like 3 days in a row where we just like haven't communicated at all. It's just whenever we do hang out, like we hang out for like days at a time, and then we take some time off because we just get so like I don't know how to explain it. Like we spend all this time together, and then
Too much of a good thing is too much.
yeah, we spend all this time together, and then we don't hang out for like 4 days straight after that, and we only see each other at school, but we still know that we're best friends, and we don't like second guess it. It's just we do all of this at once, and then we break up, and we're like, okay, that's enough. See you next week. And like that's just sometimes how it goes. Like they'll come over like every day for like 4 days, and then I won't see them the whole weekend, and it's just I don't know. It's just random. Like
well, and you guys are working. You got jobs
like
in there.
I see them at work, so that's not that. Like we'll get food, we'll go. I don't even know what we do. We just like go to each other's houses. We get food. We get drinks, like from like Fat Straws or something. I don't know.
Well,
But I don't really post them that much.
There's so much in there about technology. I don't think technology necessarily changes the dynamic that much. I mean, I think, you know.
Well, I even think about like people used to send handwritten letters to each other. Like that was a way that, and granted, that's also because we didn't really have well, we did. Like I don't send handwritten letters as much as I used to. I used to send a whole lot more of them. But now it's like I'm going to text someone Merry Christmas and then I don't have to waste a stamp. But so I feel like in that sense, I feel like I'm not honoring those relationships as much as the effort of going through and writing a handwritten note and putting it in the mail. Like that shows an extra bit of effort that says, hey, you're really special to me, you're worth it. But it is so easy to copy and paste a Merry Christmas text that it almost dulls down.
You don't even type them?
You can. I used to be, because I used to send a Merry Christmas text
and paste
to every
Christmas
single
text?
person.
Hold on.
This was
I
in
don't
high
even
school
think.
and like middle school.
No. I'm calling that one out. I don't even think that counts.
I don't
I
think so
copy
either.
and paste my Merry Christmas texts. That's
Yep.
nothing more than a friend streak exercise.
Exactly. That was the thing in my middle school and beginning of high school. And then I think I stopped definitely when I went to college. But I used to just say, you know, Merry Christmas to one person, then I would copy and paste to all the contacts that I wanted to just let them know I was thinking about them. So to me, that was like, I went through the effort of sending you a text. But now.
No, at that age,
Yeah.
The whole idea that you are an independent being wanting to independently wish a Merry Christmas to specific people in your life, that's actually part of the growing up experience, right? Whereas up until that point, and you had a phone and your friends had phones, you were part of the, you know, mom, dad, and kids, you know, letters that everybody, you know, and you didn't have the money to buy a stamp, and so you were just the and kids kind of a message, you know. So
Yeah.
I get that. I thought you were doing that now.
No. Now, if I text you on a holiday, it's because I'm really sincerely thinking about you. And usually I still send out handwritten notes or some kind of little, or I'll call. Like now it's more of an effort. So that's why I feel like technology does kind of play a role in recognizing who's really worth the phone call, who's really worth the personalized text or the handwritten note, who's worth the video chat and who's not. And that kind of wakes my mind up to, oh, I don't think this person and I are really as close as I thought because I didn't reach out to them at all on the holiday. I didn't really care to contact them. And so it's kind of an alarm system for me in a way of, if all I feel like doing is shooting you a quick text that's copied and pasted or just thoughtlessly strung out,
I mean,
then
there's
how
the
much do you really mean to me?
There's the acquaintance, and then there's the friend, right? And then
Right.
and there are acquaintances that when you do see them in passing, you have that stilted conversation. And then there's people that you're acquaintances with that you're genuinely happy that you got a chance to catch up, and it brightened your day, but you didn't have any desire and nor did they have any desire to set up a lunch date. And then just down this, it's like this continuum, right? Then you have that friend who you were glad to see, but you're a little upset that they hadn't, and so there's some negative energy there or whatever. And then there's the one that you're like, oh, we got to get together, but you never do, So
Yeah.
there's this whole spectrum of where people can be. And so go back to the whole thing about, how men honor relationships. I mean, I think it's not a gender issue as much as it's because it's the spectrums that overlap, right? Granted, probably women have a little bit more at one end of the spectrum as far as the dynamic in friendships than men do, and men can have a dynamic in their friendship that's very much gender, but there's a lot of overlap between, well, that's my best friend, I haven't talked to them in 4 years. Yeah, that's a bit more of a likely guy thing, but it doesn't mean it's only a guy thing, right? Versus,
Oh, no, not exclusively.
no, but I'm just saying, and so for me, the whole idea of having a connection, and the person who calls versus the person who just takes the phone call or whatever, I probably put more thought, or I think more about friendships than most guys do. And that's not good or bad, better or worse. It's just, so in some respects, I'm probably more, female in that mindset of that emotional connection you get from the friendship versus just the camaraderie, right? Guys have camaraderie, women have an emotional connection. I probably skew towards looking for more of a connection. And I've actually had conversation with my brother at one point, and I was talking about how it didn't seem like we were things were as important to him as they were to me, and his comment to me was, well, sometimes, Rich, you try too hard, and it was kind of like, that's an interesting perspective. I didn't know that you could be a friend that could try too hard. But if I'm being honest, there's probably a couple of people in my life that have wanted to be friends with me where I didn't have a connection with them. And I could definitely sense that they were trying to be a closer friend and I wasn't necessarily. So in that respect, I can't deny that that's not a dynamic, right? I mean, the human connection's pretty complex, but friendships for me at this point, there's most people that I see from my past, I'll have a really nice conversation with, but I no longer feel compelled to say, hey, let's have coffee. But if I do say it, it's because I really want it. But then what I want out of that exchange may not be what they want. And so you just kind of let the friendships happen. And they all kind of settle into a bucket, if you will.
I kind of referred to friendships this morning as watering a succulent. I'm known for killing plants by overwatering them. I have killed a cactus successfully multiple times. But I realized that, because I felt that it needed more water, and it didn't at all. And so it started to die, and so I backed off, and then it started to grow crooked. And it was just a nice metaphorical visual reminder of the fact that when you love things as they want to be loved and as they need to be loved, rather than how you want to love them, they will still grow and they will still flourish. But if you overwater and you put too much effort into something and you love them in a way that they're not meant to be loved, then they might not survive. So I don't know, it's kind of, that visual has kind of helped me step back and go, am I loving people the way that they want to be loved and supported? Because that doesn't always look the same for me as it does for someone else. Lily, I'm curious to know if you have had recently or in the past, a falling out with a friend and what that felt like. Because I feel like when my friends and I had falling outs in high school, it was like the world was over. We were breaking up. Everyone had to know, and it was bad. What is that like for you when you lose a friend?
Well, I try, whenever I do have a fight or an argument with a friend that ends up in us not being friends anymore, I try not to spread it everywhere and have everyone know, because I just feel like, number one, no one really cares if we're friends or not. Number two, it's really not their business. Not to be like snobby, like it's not your business, but it's really just not, like they don't care enough to like know about it. So
Wait,
whenever
how many people are in your high school?
4,000.
Okay. Everyone knew our business whether we liked it or not in high school. Let me clarify that.
Yeah,
Like,
there's
if you lost a friend, everyone knew.
no, there's 900
Well, that was
people.
just a survival of 160 students. You had to know who not to have together in the same room.
That's fair.
So if we did have a fight, I would never, when I'm mad, I'm irritated, I never really am. I always try and see it from their point of view, because I know how frustrating it is for me when I'm arguing with someone and they just refuse to even think about how I'm seeing things. So I always, even if I'm really mad, I always try and just take a step back, and I'm like, okay, like, well, if what they're saying they really do believe is true, and like if I don't agree, like, let's just see why they would think that. And then sometimes it just doesn't work out, and it does hurt. Like, it feels like like you said, it feels like we're breaking up. And it's happened, I think, like 2 times in my whole life where I've had like a really big fight with my friend, and like we just never spoke again. And I kind of just got over it. I don't know. Like, I definitely missed it, and I missed being their friend and like just texting them and being like, hey, let's hang out, and like going to the movies, going to the mall or something like that. But at the same time, I just realized like it was just a friendship, and it was important at the time, but the more time we spent away from each other, I realized how much we weren't like alike, and we didn't really get along that well. I kind of just wanted a friend to like hang out with every weekend. But now, like, friends that I have now, I know that, I mean, obviously I'm not insulting them. I like them a lot, and I think that we get along. But at the same time, I'm never really depending on them to stay with me until I get to college. Like, I'm never really putting expectations on people, because I think that's unfair.
I feel like maybe adult relationships are very similar in that you kind of start to realize that you're not meant to work together as friends.
Mm-hmm.
But instead of, and sometimes you do have fights, like sometimes you just have the disagreement that ends the friendship and you don't talk anymore. But I also feel like there are those people where we kind of start to realize that you're less alike than you thought in the beginning, and so you just slowly stop communicating, and it's like ghosting but on a gradual level. And so I feel like adults are still, I don't think I've ever looked at someone or had a conversation with someone where I'm like, yeah, no offense, but I don't think we're really going to be good friends here. Like, Rich, maybe you've been in a situation where it's actually been brought up that this is not a good friendship, but I feel like adults deal with their problems by just kind of shoving it under the rug and going, yeah, if you surface again, I might pretend to have coffee with you, but like, or not. And you just kind of both go separate ways without talking about it or mentioning it.
Yeah. I mean, you know, the thing is, though, a friendship is not a social contract to stay with them for life.
No.
And I think as you get older, you realize that people will come into and out of your life for different reasons. And there were guys that I was friends with, but the only reason I was friends and got along with them, and we even hung out a little bit outside, was because we coached Little League Baseball and our sons were on the same team. But once they get out of the Little League age, without minimizing the friendship that we had at that moment, you knew that it wasn't going to last beyond that, right? And that was okay. I mean, that was just, you know. And then plus, when you, as an adult, you got family responsibilities, you've got your job, you've got hobbies that you do, you have friends that you're actively, you know, in friendships with. Those you know, those types of friends that you make in the moment take up a much less part of your, you know, much smaller part of your life and your time and your emotion, you know. So, you know, when you look back, you'll be like, well, no, this is my best friend in middle school. Well, the reason you say it that way is because the only reason you were best friends, you were living the middle school life together. And in that moment, that's one of 3 people outside of your family that you have a connection with, right? So the stakes feel much higher when you're in that dynamic. It's like when my daughter broke up with her boyfriend in high school, and she was just crying her eyes out. And she, I said, you know what, you're not going to like this, but here's what I'm going to tell you. What you're feeling now is about as intense of an emotion as you're ever going to feel, but it will go away sooner than you think right now. And so, because the breakup in high school versus the breakup with someone that you got engaged to in your 20s, it's not nearly as intense as that middle school breakup. But the pain and the loss you feel is going to last a little longer. You're going to get over both, hopefully, right? And I think that same thing about friendships that don't work out. They don't always affect you as intensely as they did when you're in middle school or high school, but they still affect you. And, if you're living in the moment, you're not looking at every friendship going, oh, how's this one going to fall apart? Or how's this one? I think for me, I'm starting to get to a point where it's just, you know what? I have a person in the moment I'm sharing this experience with, I'm having a good conversation with, and I tend to live more in the moment. And my best friend is my wife at this point.
Oh, that's cute.
Well, you could say my only friend. No, I mean, I've got people that I work with, but when it's a different dynamic too. If I had grown up and raised a family if I was in the same town that we were in for the last 15 years before we moved to Dallas, and if I was at the same company for 15 or 20 years, and those people lived in the neighborhood, right? I think my view on friendships would be completely different. But I've got friends from all around the country, which, for me is nice, because if I make a trip somewhere, I can look somebody up because I'm in the same city for the week. And whereas people that, don't travel like I do and don't work in a business full of other people who travel, you travel to another city, you're not going to see anybody, and there's no chance to connect with anybody in that town or get advice of where to go to dinner or anything. So, I think it's also life circumstance definitely plays a role in how friendships play out for you. But the adage, technology or not, I think the one adage that holds true is if you've got 1 or 2 really good friends, people that without a shadow of a doubt are your friends, and that you can lean on them and ask them for things, and you want to be there for them. If you have 1 or 2 in your life, then you're blessed. There's not many people that get to my age and are still keeping track of 15 other people, or doing Snapchat streaks with 40 other people, or have 800 followers, it's all going to come down to, when you really look back at it, through all that noise, through all that experience, for all those people coming in and out of your life, you're probably going to look and go, I had a half a dozen really good friends, and not all of those even lasted. I think
I was always jealous, and even like one of my friends from high school had a birthday party last year that I went to, and we had to keep adding tables, and I was so jealous because I was like, wow, I wish this many people would show up for my birthday. Like, I wish that even as an adult, I had this many people that wanted to come out and celebrate with me. And then I'm sitting there, I'm going, she doesn't have time to talk to all these people. She's gonna maybe say hi, give them a hug, take a gift from them, and that's it. Like that, it's almost overwhelming. It's a full-time job, is to care about that many relationships and maintain that many relationships. Now, her situation was a little bit more unique because she had this great group from work. She had this group social life from her friends, and then her boyfriend had friends that were coming in. So it was kind of a commingling of a bunch of different people. But even still, if I were to sit down and think about like who would show up, most of my friendships are with people who aren't even in the country or are in different states. And so it's very different. And I feel like that comparing your own friendships and your level of relationships to what other people have is never a good idea. But especially when you're looking at people who they go to work and then they have their social life, and that's their only other priority outside of work is their social life. And then maintaining that many relationships might be easier. But to me, I don't even like texting half the time because I have so much other stuff going on in my life. And that's an extra job for me to maintain all of those friendships. And so that's why most of my relationships are with people who can go for a couple weeks without hearing from me, but then we pick it up like nothing changed, or they know that I'm always here for them, even if I'm not texting them every day or hitting their snap streak or whatever. And so I just feel like there's this perception that the more people you have in your life, the happier you are and the more people show up for you. But in all reality, that is really hard to maintain.
Well, it is. And think about it, like the analogy that comes to mind for me is a pool, right? So, she has a pool in her backyard, and it's, 20 yards by 20 yards, and it's 3 feet deep, right? And you have a pool in your backyard, and it's, 4 feet by 4 feet, but it's 20 feet deep, right? So you have there's only so many people there's a ton of people that can fit in her pool, but it only gets to 3 feet.
Mm-hmm.
You think about depth of friendship, depth of relationship, right? Versus you have a smaller pool and you invite people, but when you connect, with that fewer people more deeply. And neither one's right or wrong, better or worse, but I don't think anyone has any more ability to connect at a level than most. And I also think there's a dynamic of extrovert versus introvert. When you get together with friends, as an introvert, as an empath, you need things from that interaction. Whereas if you're an extrovert and not particularly focused on what you can get, you can hang out with as many people as you want, because for whatever reason, the extroverted energy, that feeds you, right? So there's so many different personality, gender, where you're at in the stage of your life, and even what you consider to be a true friendship. I mean, Lily, in middle school, you had 8 best friends, and I was like, how do you have multiple best friends? Best friend means the best, the whole word best, right? But, I don't know. For me, I look for people who leave me feeling happier or more connected. And if I leave an exchange feeling drained, or not necessarily actively drained, but like there's either no connection or I'm feeling less connected, then that's an indicator. I trust my gut and my heart much more about whether I want to nurture a relationship or not. And I'm sure that my phone's not ringing off the hook either, right? So you also come to grips with the idea that says, well, I'm not necessarily that person either, that when someone says, hey, Rich is having a birthday party, that 40 people are going to show up like it's the greatest thing ever. But I do know that I have some pretty meaningful conversations with some pretty special people, and some of them are once or twice a year. Mm-hmm. So,
yeah.
And I got 2 good friends right here on this podcast.
Oh, stop. Well, thanks for indulging me in a conversation about friendships. I was just like so reeling off of this idea that I could reconnect with an acquaintance with whom I never even had much contact with and talk for 4 hours about life and love and being an adult. And it's just, I don't know, you never know what conversation with one person is going to lead to in terms of a friendship. And then who knows? She could be my best friend a few months from now.
That's crazy. That's really crazy.
I think when you don't have expectations and you keep your heart open, anything can happen, but I think there's also a dynamic, a slightly different analogy, and then we'll finish up since we're at the hour. There's 2 analogies that I use, which is something that's important to you, is if you've ever tried to hold sand in your hand and you squeeze on the sand, what happens the harder you squeeze, the more sand leaks out. And so your very effort of trying to keep your hand full of sand is actually counterproductive. And the video that I saw online was this ceremony. I think it was in Russia, and there were these politicians, and they were doing a tribute, and they all had doves. And the whole thing was there was a song that was going to play, and at the end of the song, they were going to release the doves into the air. And this one guy is standing there. They're all holding the doves, and they were all, the doves are moving around and everything. And they all threw the doves up into the air at the right time, and his dove went up and then plop, fell right back down to the ground. Now I'm quite certain he probably just knocked it out. He didn't necessarily kill it.
Oh,
But
no.
the moment, but the reason I bring that up is he wasn't trying to do that. It was through his own fear of not doing or not. His own fear caused him to create the exact opposite result of what he wanted, right? Mm-hmm. So I think that's just some food for thought as we close out the moment about how to maintain friendships and relationships. Sometimes we find ourselves in a place, and maybe being counterintuitive to our own predisposition is exactly what we need to do, because Aaron, you and I have struck up a friendship, and there's been zero effort in maintaining the friendship because the connection is there. The only thing that from an effort perspective is that there's, when we make commitments to each other, we've kept them. And you know what? That says something right there. So, just to close out on a personal note.
Yeah, I think I need a book of analogies by Rich. I think that's what I need in my life, because you've got some really good ones. The light bulb or the light and pool. I think we need a book of analogies by Rich. I think that's what XYZ is in need of.
I agree.
All right. Well, you're the author.
I'll even help you illustrate it. I can put together some little graphic. You send me the analogies, we can take off with it.